heart is beating really fast. My throat is closing up. I don't think I can do this. They say if you speak it out loud, state your fears, then it loses its power and you can overcome it. Listen, I have screamed murder every time I see a lizard. I have not overcome anything. So what does it do when I say that public speaking is not my forte, that my throat is closing up, I can feel the palpitations of my heart debilitating me, and I am going to throw up? What does it do? It makes Principal Madam reconsider her seat in the front row. It makes some of you think, what kind of an actor is afraid of speaking in public? Maybe it makes some of you think back to a time when you were about to do something big and felt truly nauseous. But guess what? It made all of you think. It engaged you, and now you're invested in whether this girl is going to make it through the talk or not. Even I'm wondering. But that is storytelling. It's not taking power away from a feeling, it's giving it more power. It's putting it in hair and makeup, dressing it in costume, lighting it up, putting it on stage for everyone to see, because that's what you engage with, that's what you respond to. The first time I responded to something powerful, a one-room kitchen, Mahara housing, I'm 4 years old, and I'm brushing my teeth in front of a TV, and this woman sings, Piya tu, ab to aaja. This woman, waiting in despair, drinking her pain, stumbling, falling, a man nowhere in sight, calling out from a distance, Monica, oh my darling. This woman, she climbs to the top of a tower as if she's going to jump off it, like she can't take the pain any longer. Instead, she finds a slide. So she slides down this grand slide and breaks into dance. And her stumbling steps turn into hip thrusts and jazz hands. And her painful eyes turn into this fierce magnetic gaze. And there's an implosion on screen. And in my heart, and my response as a 4-year-old to Helen on TV, still brushing, was to lift my Elko Market nighty gown dress my mom used to buy me, was to bend down and lift my nighty along my right leg to mimic Helen's thigh-high slit. And my mom's response to that, Asu kare nighty niche kar. For the next few months, I'd insist that my mother call me Monica, and I'd go to the jungle gym when I knew I'd find it empty so that I could slide and emulate this woman who I couldn't take my mind off, this woman who used her deep despair and a damn slide to positively launch herself into her best life, where she was the best dancer, singing the best song. When I was 7, I moved to Challengers in Thakur village. I'd never seen such tall buildings. You know, this... So excited by Challengers. I didn't expect this. More excitement for Helen, please. Anyway. So I was 7, I moved to Challengers. I'd never seen such tall buildings, or a lift, or a Western toilet. It was very different for me. I couldn't make friends with the kids there, with oil in my hair and home-stitched clothes, and these kids with their fancy bikes and 100 rupees pocket money. Oh God, I constantly tried to keep up with them but failed, spent all my time with stray dogs and puppies instead. Watching me struggle in this new environment, my mother wrote a film inspired by it called Lilki. Lilki was a story about a young girl from the mountains who was brought to the city to work as domestic help. My mom asked me to play Lilki in her film. Nervousness, palpitations, want to throw up, but did it anyway. I was 11. Had to do it because, you know, we all had to help. There was little to no money. My dad shot it, mom directed it, I acted in it. We did everything ourselves, the sets, the costumes. Everything we owned, a piece of fabric, an old chair, everything was put forth to making this film. One day I remember on set, I was so tired, I was so frustrated. My parents were pampering the other kids on set and I was being treated like an equal, you know, working and lifting things, and I just got so tired, I started crying loudly, my favorite tool for communication. Before my parents could console me, they started rolling the camera. They needed footage of Lilki crying and missing her home in the mountains. Once they got their shot, they called cut and they walked up to me and they said, "Beta, buck up, it's time for the next shot." My sadness was being repurposed. My tears, when put in the context of a story, a costume, and lights, meant something more now because it was captured on film. There's a scene in Lilki where Lilki is playing with stray puppies and her arch nemesis comes by and tells Lilki to go away because the building kids don't want to play with, a servant girl. And for the first time, Lilki fights back and says, "Tum kaun ho? Yahan ki nani ho kya?" When I said those lines, oh my God, the retribution. It's like I had said what I wanted to say to my bullies. Felt like Amitabh Bachchan. Movies and life seem to ebb and flow into one another in my household. Even when I tried my best to be a diligent, virtuous student and go back to my room and study about the life cycle of a tapeworm and types of thermal conductors, my parents would hold me hostage every night after dinner and ask me to watch a film. One film every day, they made sure of it, and not just watched it, talked about it, analyzed it, critiqued it. So of course, when it was time to pick what college I should go to, because they're in the film industry and they're so passionate about films, they told their daughter, "Beta, you can do anything but this. Do not follow in our footsteps." Mind you, this coming from a mother who had given birth to me on the campus of the Film and Television Institute of India, where I spent the first 2 years of my life in the dorms with her, where even before I turned 1, I'd already starred in several diploma films. I had a booming career. And this coming from a father who picked a raging fight with me because he wanted to take me to the new Brad Pitt film that had released in the theaters, and I refused to go, and he yelled, "How dare you, you are not my daughter." And I cried and said, "I don't want to go. I have an exam tomorrow, my physics exam, my 10th standard final board exam." Anyway, I was lost. My parents didn't want me. I had to go for the film, by the way. Anyway, my parents didn't want me to do anything with the films, and I was lost, so I pretended to be interested in other things. One day, I accompanied my best friend to one of those classes that help you get into engineering colleges. I thought as long as I was with her, engineering could be fun. The tutor, they asked me her first question. She said, "Do you study hard?" I said, "Yeah, I study very hard." She said, "Well, that's not going to work. You have to study smart, not hard." Pointing to my best friend, she said, "And you can't be friends with her. She's your competition now." I went back home and told my parents calmly, "I cannot be an engineer. The teacher was the devil and the students were possessed." Medicine was another option. I have lots of doctors in my family. But my father said, "If you're going to be a good doctor, which I know you will have to be on call day or night." I said, "I can't be a doctor. I have to be able to travel spontaneously, and I don't like people calling me at night and disturbing my beauty sleep." That year, our farm had way too many mangoes, so friends and family from everywhere were coming home and picking their share. And one of them happened to be a teacher at an architecture school, and he asked me, "What are you going to do with your life next?" And I said, "I don't know." And he was like, "Why don't you come to our college tomorrow? We are having an entrance exam." So, devil teacher wants to travel spontaneously, plus a spare box of mangoes, and now I'm in architecture school. I was lost at architecture school. The course was too rigorous. I couldn't make sense of what was being expected of me. There was not one way of doing anything, no textbook, just lots of trial and error. All of first year, I was on sick leave. One day, I heard this girl say she didn't want me to be part of her group project because Aiman won't do anything, she'll just fall sick again. In that moment, I told myself, "Buck up, beta, it's time for the next shot." So I got better, more ambitious with my project, started asking questions, growing, learning, traveling the world, representing my school, student exchanges and all that. And before I knew it, I was an architect. I was working in Taiwan. This firm had given me an accommodation on the top floor of their office, so commute to work was great. I was working with brilliant minds in the day, not speaking a word of the language, by the way, communicating solely through drawings and animated hand gestures, and working on big projects, unusual for a young architect. Public projects, urban landscapes, schools. and spending my evenings having the office all to myself, an office in the middle of beautiful rice fields, and watching old videos of Geeta Dutt songs with the office dog Mocha. It was a dream job. One night, after celebrating a successful presentation to the president of Taiwan, yeah, it was a good job, my colleagues came back to the office with me. They wanted to keep the party going. So we drank, we ate, we played mahjong, and talked more about architecture. And then I thought, after months of brutal deadlines and this final presentation, these people wanted to keep the party going by coming back to the office and talking more about architecture? I didn't have that passion. It didn't matter that I loved architecture, I enjoyed it, I was good at it, but I was still ending my days with songs and movies. So in that moment, I thought, I have to go be an actor. So just like that, from real sights and real numbers and I-beams and trusses, I was now in a theater at the Lee Strasberg Institute in New York, spending a 2-hour class sitting with an imaginary teacup, exploring how it felt to hold it, to look at it, to drink from it. I was lost. There was a different part of my brain that had to be activated to do this work, something I'd never done before. Relax. Relaxation is the first step of method acting. And there are other things, but you can't truly inhabit a new character if you're relaxed and you're not practicing relaxation consistently to be in tune with your instrument, that is your body. Only if you're truly aware of every single feeling in your body, you can address it, you can relieve it, or you can find a way to incorporate it into your scene. To me, that was powerful. I soon realized that everything that was different about me, everything that seemed problematic, was now kind of making sense. I was shy, but that made me mysterious. Overthinking in a rich inner world. She cries easy, she gets nervous, her heart palpitates. My palpitating heart was seen on stage. My voice would break and an emotion was conveyed. Everything wrong about me was now working. Because of architecture, I could build sets, build life, pull from the sites I'd studied, the people I'd interviewed, remember details about the places and homes I'd lived in. The broken childhood, the bullies, the heartaches, everything had found its place. And when I was introduced to improvisation, the act of creating something out of nothing in the present, improvisation basically begins with choosing a very simple who, what, where. For example, 2 roommates at a supermarket fighting over what ketchup to buy. And then the 2 actors play it very honestly. Don't force a joke, don't chase a story. Just respond to each other and wait for a story to come up. So for example, I want to buy an expensive ketchup, you want to buy a cheap one. Because I treat my body like a temple and I care what I put in it. You think buying expensive ketchup is reckless and you need to save money. Save money for what? To buy a new house. And now, I don't care about ketchup. I'm devastated that my friend is leaving me to start a new life in a new home. That's the story. So you're accepting everything that's coming up and building on it, the yes and method. This method gave me all the ammunition I needed to reinforce the ideas I was forming as an artist. The kind of architecture I liked was like that. Sustainable architecture, build with what you have. Everything you need is already on site. In fact, the most defining moments of my life had been like that. Yes, and. Yes, I love these buildings in Taiwan, and let me write to them and ask if I can come work with them. Yes, I want to be an actor, and let me find a way to make that happen. So now that I've started working in the industry, I continue doing the same. Sometimes I find the industry not working for me, not having access to certain rooms, there not being enough meaningful work being written for women. So I create projects for myself because I am what I have. I find friends and women who are going through the same thing. I ask them, what are the characters that you'd like to play? Because the stories already exist within them. My beautiful blonde friend wants to play a psychopath. A people pleaser wants to play a judgmental snob. What about a suicide counselor who's suicidal herself? So I wrote and wrote because women philosophers, women pirates, women criminals have been written out of history over and over again, and I just didn't want my women, the women around me, to be forgotten. their flaws, their desires, their secrets, beyond what cinema today was seeing them as. And by the way, the competition was not the women, like that tutor lady had suggested. They were my biggest resource. And it was hard work, not smart work, like she'd said, because if I was smart, we'd know that it's nearly impossible to start a production house and have it be profitable, but we did it anyway. So that's the who and what. The where, the first film we shot at home. The second film we shot in someone else's home. When we started running out of places, my father said, write a film in our car. So we made an 85-minute film in our car. And when we started running out of money to make feature films, we made a 4-minute film in the Mumbai local train for 350 rupees. And the opportunities that arose from making these films, I could not have planned them. But that's not the point. Fear and uncertainty still persist, but you have to go on. And there will be people who question your madness and your will to go on. Beta, you're an actor? You don't come on Netflix? Oh, but this gets easier. Now if somebody asks me, कुछ काम कर रही हो कि नहीं? ऐसे कुछ नहीं, बस पापा के पैसे खर्च कर रही हूँ. Doesn't matter what people think. At Strasbourg, every time we finished doing a scene, our teacher would ask us, how did it feel for you? Because only I know how honest I've been in a scene. Only I know how hard I've worked. That's the only compass I need. I don't need external validation. And if you're truly open to seeing the world for what it is, you'll know exactly where you stand in the scheme of things. So it doesn't matter that I book 1 in 300 jobs that I audition for, that out of 365 days in a year, I get to be in front of the camera for 20. That is if I'm having a good year. And in all those moments that make up those 20 days, I try to chase the state of absolute honesty and maybe just succeed at creating 1 or 2 such honest moments in front of a rolling camera that feel truly magical. And life is like that. A few moments of great feeling, and you have to catch that, you have to ride that wave. And there's not one way of arriving at those moments. Like, there's not one way of making a film. And there's not one way of being a lead actress. Like, there's not one way of making a building and not one way of being brave. Yeah, there's one place of fear and one hope that you overcome that fear. But, you cannot create from a place full of fear or fearlessness. It's not interesting. The best decisions, the best moments happen in the middle. Creating is in the middle. Being an artist is committing to swinging in this middle. Being an artist is like committing to waking up every day and going on a spontaneous trip, because you can, you're not a doctor, with no specific destination, because there's no one right answer. It's not a science, you're not an engineer. And on that trip, meeting an old man or a crazy lady who claims to be psychic and being so affected by something that she's told you that you can't wait to go back to your room and write a whole story about it and change your whole life because of that story, because that is your party that you don't want stopping. So what does your party look like? And if you know, but you're waiting to be some perfect version of yourself, to attend it, to allow yourself to do the one thing that you love doing, don't. Because doing something wild isn't about one grand decision or one act of bravery. It's about little moments where you said yes and little decisions you took over time with what you had, your best tools and truth. And you stay only because you want to keep trying to have those moments so that you have more and more crazy stories to tell, because beta, it's always time for the next shot. Thank you so much for listening to me. This is all I know about being bold without necessarily being brave. Thank you.